The first thing, when I was told autism, I had no idea what that meant, and so I went online and I did a Google search for autism, and there's like 750,000 pages, and it said, the first thing I read said, autism is a lifelong disabling neurological disorder. Typically these kids are in a group home at the age of 25. I said, not my kid.
We started the diet at 2 years, 4 months, and that's when language started. We went gluten-free, casein-free, and we did it the way you're not supposed to. We went cold turkey, and he had a major, we thought it was just a diaper rash, but we came to find out it was a yeast infection on his butt, the die-off, so clearly the diet was doing something for him. And then speech started exploding.
I've done a lot of different things, but the three things that I saw immediate and dramatic improvement with were digestive enzymes, cod liver oil, and auditory integration therapy. And dramatic to the point that on cod liver oil he went from 3 words to 150 words in 45 days. On auditory integration therapy he went from crawling on all fours and being upside down and eating with his hands, in 4 days eating with a spoon and walking upright.
Doing this and doing this and doing this, I don't do them anymore. Mom gives me zinc to not do that anymore.
Your child is born. With new life comes new hope, a hope for the future. When autism steals your child's words, steals your child's smile, it feels like all hope is lost. Recent statistics show that 1 in 166 children has autism. At the 2004 DAN conference in Washington, D.C., DAN doctors, scientists, and parents alike shared their views on what they believe the future holds for this disorder. Over the next few minutes, you'll hear personal insights from such noted authors and speakers as Dr. Stephanie Cave, Dr. Jane Eldar, Lynn Hamilton, Dr. Bernard Rimland, and Dr. Andrew Wakefield. Join us now as we answer the question, is autism treatable?
Our son was diagnosed with autism at 2 years, 8 months old. And at that point he had an IQ of 53, which is in the retarded range. He had no appropriate language. He said ee, he said wah 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 wah, which meant nothing, and he screamed. High-pitched, blood-curdling scream, just walk in a room, scream, and I had to figure out what he needed.
These children probably had normal chemistry at birth, but in giving them so much metal, and at birth we gave them 25 times EPA safe, 2 months we gave them 120 times, and then 100 times at 4 months, 120 times at 6 months. We literally took their liver detox chemistry down the tube.
So we just did the simple thing. We said, do these gastrointestinal symptoms represent an underlying disease in the bowel, as the parents have said they believe they do?
If you evaluate them in routine fashion, standard workup for those specific symptoms, and you find no cause for these ongoing symptoms, and then you subsequently perform endoscopy and colonoscopy on them, you will find in over 70% treatable causes of these symptoms.
And this is the first clue that we had that there may be some underlying medical disease, not psychological, not behavioral, but medical disease that was amenable to understanding and therefore to treatment. The next thing was the parents said there is a move to put these children on a gluten casein-free diet. Now, that was very interesting because as gastroenterologists we'd had a lot of experience with the role of diet in celiac disease, the role of diet in treating patients who are in liver failure, who become encephalopathic. Fascinating, a link between the bowel and the brain, or the gastrointestinal tract and the brain. And so we as gastroenterologists were aware that there is some interaction between the bowel and the brain, often mediated by the chemicals that come from the food that we eat or the bacteria in the intestine. So this was nothing new to us. It makes sense that a diet would work, because if you're not metabolizing in the intestine these toxic opioid-like molecules, then they will get through into the bloodstream and hit the developing brain. And we know from experimental models that they injure the developing brain. Some children started speaking for the first time in a few years, and what was fascinating is they used the words that they'd stopped using 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Normal language. He's got no speech therapy. He can say anything he wants. As a matter of fact, when he was 5 years old, now remember at 3 years old he could not speak. 5 years old he walked up to me and said, "Mom, do you know that sharks are cartilaginous?"
This is a little guy who Dr. Eldar and I actually sat on the couch with Mom when he was 2 years old, and this child was grim. He was wasting. He really looked like one of those concentration camp babies. It just was a refugee sort of an appearance, this little guy. By cleaning this little man up, by going through getting the gut cleaned up, by cleaning up his diet, by removing offending agents like gluten and casein, and that wasn't the end of it. There were a lot of things that he can't handle. He can't handle corn and can't handle soy, but by cleaning all those things up, by going through a course of IVIG, he is normal. And he's in kindergarten without a label. Nobody knows that this child ever had autism. He was diagnosed as severely autistic when he was 2, and by 5 and 6, there's no apparent issues with autism.
Autism is very much treatable nowadays as a result of research and clinical experience that has accumulated within the past 4 or 5 years.
There is hope. Without hope, you can't fight. You give up and you stop and you just accept. Most people are told things like, deal with it and move on. But that's not true. There is hope. And with that hope, you get help from the DAN movement, help from so many areas. There's so much help available. And so when you have help, you get hope. And when you have help and hope, you have a chance to get your child back.
As a parent of an affected child, I know how incredibly hard this is. And I know what an undertaking and sacrifice it is to say, okay, I'm going to do the diet, and I'm going to try and give my child these medications that they need, and I'm going to do all this complex things that people are asking me to do. But if you can really stick with it and do it, it makes a tremendous, tremendous difference.
When I first came to this meeting, there were a handful of physicians. What's fascinating is there are about 50 physicians here now, and there are many, many scientists and researchers, and once you come here and once you listen and recognize the fact that the science is real and it's making progress, those people never go away again. They remain part of what this movement is, and that's exactly what happened to me.
I am Bernard Rimland, Director of the Autism Research Institute in San Diego. If you are the parent of a child who is formerly autistic and is now recovered from autism or virtually recovered from autism, we need to hear from you. Please register your child with us at www.autismistreatable.com.